Hey guys, I wanted to make a video covering the basics of how to create flats. I'm going to be using Clip Studio Paint here, but I'll try to go over some Photoshop things as well without actually using Photoshop. So here's an example of a finished, quote-unquote, finished art piece, and you can see I've got, lots of different types of like shading and highlights, and there's like some spacey stuff going on, and these are all kind of extra things that we will add as we go. The most important way to start is the flats. So flats are just a base color, nothing fancy. We're just kind of like blocking out the main areas of this art piece. So let me just go through my file here, right here for you right now. So this first layer here is just a sample. I've got a folder here that has my artwork in it. I have a layer called inks, which has the line art. I have a layer called flats, which is currently empty. And then I just have this gray background. Sometimes gray is good for a few reasons. One, it can help with eye strain, because sometimes if your screen is just white, it might strain your eyes for long periods of time. So having a little bit darker of a background might help with eye strain. Two is that you will not forget to color in your white areas. So if you're doing like the white of the eyes, sometimes we can forget the white the white spots because we've got a white background. And then also sometimes the color of your background can help you notice areas you might have missed. So little kind of holes or gaps in your flats. If you got holes in your flats, then that might make coloring and shading more difficult. So I'm going to go to my flats layer, and you always want to color on a layer that is underneath your inks. I do not want to see people coloring on their inks. I'm back in the ye olden times when I use like MS Paint. You'd have to use your line art layer, so to speak, to fill in your colors. We're not doing that. So we're not coloring on the same layer as our inks. We're going to be coloring on a layer below. So I recommend calling your first one flats, but you can name it whatever the heck you want. So the first thing to know is that I recommend using a brush that has this kind of, like in Clip Studio Paint, you'll see each brush has this anti-aliasing setting here. I recommend using the most like ugliest bitmappy one, and I'll show you an example why. I'm going to go over the top, really goofy with it, but let's say I draw a shape like a circle, and I have a soft brush, and then I try to color that in. That's not going to be good. You're going to have these gaps and holes. Maybe this is a bit overkill, but if I use different types of brushes, let's see if this one does it. If I do this one might look a little bit more like a normal brush, but same thing. If I try to fill it in, you're going to have these little gaps and holes, and that's not good. If we use a crunchy, bitmappy edge for our flats, and then we try to color it in, you're going to see it colors in that whole area. So this is really bingo right here. We don't want to have little holes and gaps and missing pixels in our colors. We kind of want our flats to be just this base flat color. That's why the crispy edges are the best. So in Photoshop, you're going to notice your brushes don't have this setting. But what you can do is, instead of using the brush tool, you can use the pencil tool. The pencil tool will have the same bitmappy edges just like this, so you can achieve a similar look. Also know that you might have to adjust your settings for each tool. This goes for both Photoshop and Clip Studio, that you're going to have these anti-aliasing settings for both, for your lasso tools, for your erasers. So I recommend making sure you have it on the most bitmappy, crunchiest option. So that goes, like I said, for both Photoshop and Clip Studio. Okay, let me just let me clear what I got here. So here's one method you could do. You could use the pencil tool, use your bitmappy brush. You could go in and trace around like so. And you're going to like kind of block out areas. You're going to make sure not to have any missing gaps, because if we have a missing gap here, I'll leave one on purpose right here. I'm just going to color this like so. But I have a missing gap there. And if I try to fill in, the color is just going to spill everywhere. You can see my flats layer is just filled with blue. But if you close up, make sure all your areas are sealed up, and try again and fill it in, now you've just colored in that area you've blocked out. I often recommend, if you're going to go this method, that you go in and block out the entire character first, just basically the overall shape. But you do not have to only use the pencil tool. there's other methods, like you could use the lasso tool. Like I said, make sure you got your bitmappy settings on that. But same thing, you can just kind of trace around and make a selection. So let me kind of do this here. And then if you don't want to goof up, you can just do it in small chunks. You can fill it in and just kind of continuously move around. There's also the polyline lasso. So if you prefer to kind of click around instead. I often have issues with this where I accidentally double click when I don't mean to. So same thing, you can click around and then fill instead of, if you feel like you don't have very good hand control yet, then maybe clicking around your line art like so is a bit easier, especially if you're using a mouse. Then using the polyline would probably be a really good idea. And let me just kind of block out this area here real fast. Because I'll show you how you can color in. Let's just pretend this whole character is colored in blue. But now I want to start coloring in other areas. What you could do is, I'm just going to grab like my quote-unquote pencil tool here. I'm going to grab a obnoxiously bright color. So let's just say I can either go like this and just trace around now these areas and then fill it in. Or if you've got an area that's close to the edge like this, I have a trick for you. So like I said, let's just pretend this whole character is colored in. You can use the lock transparent pixel tools. Both Photoshop and Clip Studio have this option. It looks a little bit different, but basically you're going to click that on. And now if I draw like a lasso around, let's say her sleeve here, I'll try not to get all of it. And let me grab a different color. I grabbed like a gray and I just fill that area in. You're going to notice it only colored in the sleeve area and not the selection outside. So locking transparent pixels mean anything that's transparent, it's not going to color. So it's just going to ignore anything that's transparent because right now, there is no background here on that layer. So you're just kind of coloring in what you already blocked out. So let's say you had this feather colored in. You could just trace around. But you'll notice if I haven't colored it in, and I try to use lock transparent pixels and I try to fill it, it's not going to work because it's transparent right now. So you're going to have to make sure you have that unselected and then try again. You can always erase as well. So if you kind of colored outside the line, you can go into the eraser and clean it up. You can use the lasso for this as well. And that's how you can basically block out a character and with doing flats. And then from there, we're going to move on to talking about shading and clipping masks and things like that to help achieve, start working your way towards that sort of coloring. But the most important thing to start with is just getting your character flatted out. It's more about the selections because I can easily decide to change the color. Once I have got something blocked out, I can change those colors to whatever the heck I want. Really quick and easy. So it doesn't really matter what the color is, as long as we've got those areas blocked out. Now our life is way easier for changing colors. So changing colors is really fast and easy once you've got everything blocked out. So let me just delete all this. And this is for my Clip Studio people. I always use Clip Studio when I'm doing art, and this is a big reason why. You'll see in the paint bucket area, there's different types of paint buckets. So the fill layer we already kind of reviewed. If you click that one, it's just going to fill in everything. Unless it's blocked off by something, it's going to just bleed out everywhere. But there's this other type of paint bucket that's called Refer Other Layers. I guess I should also make a note here that you'll see I've got colors. By default, they're just kind of gray or just black and white. I changed my colors to be rainbow because I just like seeing the colors. So yours might not be blue and pink. Yours is probably, you have to set it to that. So there's an option called Refer Other Layers. So you'll notice here I'm on my flats, but Refer Other Layers means it's going to look at the other layers that are visible on the screen, and it's going to use that to decide what to color in. So if I just kind of click these areas, you might notice it's not perfect, but you can see how this goes a lot faster than going around with the lasso and tracing. Let me do this part right here. I can just kind of click around. If I click and drag, let's say I have this, I'm holding down, it's hard to see, but I'm holding it down and just kind of, if I hold it down, it just will continue to color in with that color anywhere I kind of drag my cursor. So If I want to change colors, I can click, let's say on this feather, if I click and hold down and try to fill in all the kind of gaps here. But if I kind of move my cursor over the hat, it's not going to color in the hat because it's going to look at the first color I started with. Excuse me. So if I grab a color and I start coloring on this kind of blue, and I move around, it's not going to color in unless I hit an area with that same blue. Although I do think it's easier just to use your selection tool, your magic wand tool, and change colors that way. But this is a lot better. This is a lot faster. You're still going to notice there's going to be times when there are going to be gaps. So you're just going to have to grab a flat brush and just kind of maybe close in those little gaps or get those little holes because it is not perfect. But this might make your life a lot easier. I teach a coloring comics class where I will go over more things in more detail. I guess I could spend a long time talking about different settings over here, but I don't want to really spend time doing that right now. Just know that this is an option you can do, and you'll kind of get the same effect as doing it more by hand using like a brush tool. So you can kind of go back and forth as well. So the idea is you're just going to lay out the base colors, and then from there we can use clipping masks to start adding shading and all that good stuff. So I hope you found this helpful. I would go through and do this whole character, but I'd rather just answer questions in person or in email. And yeah, good luck. Happy coloring.